Hi everyone and welcome back. So this is the part 2 of the Redis microservice implementation. In the first video we just talked about a simple overview, how these services are communicating with one another. Now what we are going to do is we are going to have a look on to the demo part. So this is what we are covering, the Redis and RabbitMQ. So Redis is PubSub model, and here we are going to use Redis as a transport. So first thing is we need to install this module IO-Redis, and this is how we are going to create the NEST JS microservice by specifying the transport Redis and host and port. Okay, so we are doing it. We already have a Redis container added. So you can see here the cache image, and inside override file, I have added this Redis cache as another container. It's exposing 6379 port, and we are going to talk to the Redis in the same way. Redis transport implementation is at the gateway. We are going to have another instance, another client proxy, and that is for Redis. So here you can see Redis service, and we are passing the two options in the client proxy.create. The transport is Redis, and the options like the host and the port for the Redis service. I mean, this is like the Redis server, not service, because we will be running a Redis server somewhere on the host and port on the Docker container that we need to specify. Same, we need to specify at the microservice side. So this is how we are creating an Nestjs Redis auth service and main.ts. This is how we are creating a simple lightweight Redis microservice. And most of these inter-service communication happens through two patterns. Either you do a .send or .emit from the client proxy. .send means it's a synchronous, so you will be adding a message pattern at the Nestjs microservice, or you will be doing .emit from the client proxy, and then you will be handling that through event pattern. Because if you look at the overview, how we are communicating, how the two services are communicating, they are communicating in two different modes: request response and fire and forget. I mean, this request is expecting a response, so you will send you will write message pattern, and from the client proxy you call .send method. Okay, there can be another is a event based event pattern. That means it's like fire and forget. You might have sent a message or event to a queue, messaging queue, and there is a Nestjs microservice listening to that particular event and will do some action, business logic. Most of these microservices support both the type of communication. Either you can just do a .send, then you will be writing a message pattern, and .emit, then you will be writing an event pattern at the receiver end. So here we are doing the same thing. Here this is how we are doing in our code. Multiple services, Redis service, and we are creating the Redis service by calling Redis client service, client proxy, using client proxy.create, because there is a client and there is a Nestjs microservice, and client we are creating using client proxy.create, and pass your service options, which contains your transport, and options which contains your host and port. Okay, coming to the code, because we have written that and we are going to look into the demo part. So this is Redis auth service. What it contains is simple Nestjs microservice, transport is Redis, and at the controller what we are doing is simply we are handling that through the message pattern, because there will be a synchronous request coming from the client get user, and on the get user you will do some action whatever, and you will return the data. So this is a message pattern. There can be a event pattern for the same event pattern, right? So message pattern and event pattern, these are two different mechanisms to handle the requests coming from the client proxy. And then you are doing some data and creating token and returning token. At the gateway level, we are just calling this service. There is a separate controller I have created. This controller is just using the same Redis service, Redis microservice instance for the client proxy, and then it is just using this .auth service .send. I mean, just a naming, it's just about naming. It could be a Redis client. So this .redis client .send Here you can do .send and .emit. Both the options are available. If you do a .send, that means you are sending this command to the message pattern at the receiver side. I mean, receiver is a Redis NEST JS microservice. So you are getting some response, and this is an observable. It can be observable stream, or it's like a one-time response coming from this observable, so we can get first value from. Otherwise, you will handle it as an observable stream. You can subscribe to that and get all the stream data which is coming from. It's like a one-time observable. Simple, some data will be received. We will just return it to the client, right? So what do I have? I have a Redis controller added in the app module. Redis controller, same as the gRPC controller, and this Redis controller is just talking, having access to this Redis client proxy instance and doing .send method and sending this command get user. Okay, so if we just run this, it's very simplified service. We are not doing much in this. So I will directly go to the demo. This is gateway, and this is our Redis auth service. So it's up and running. This is also good. We will just go to this URL and I will just do a simple ping to the Redis endpoint. Okay, it is just I'm just sending some, not sending any data, but it is just generating me the token, and that is happening from the Nestjs Redis microservice. You can see I send this event, and this is my target microservice. It is writing something to the database, and just I was checking. This is just some console log, but here it is writing something. That means it is creating token, because at that point we are writing something to the database. Source service, token service. You can see it is generating a token. It is returning the token, and so Redis auth service controller, here it is returning the token. Here I'm creating a token. So this is how all these things are happening. Where is the controller? It is returning all the data, and then because it is returning the whole payload, we are just returning the data through the gateway service. So inside a gateway, you can see Redis controller, we are getting message and data. So data is the whole thing we are getting here. This is the whole data which is coming from Redis microservice. User data, token, ID, created and updated at. This is like the response coming from the type ORM save option, right? So this is like a simple implementation. And now we understood how the service communication happens. And when you build an event-driven architecture or a microservice systems, these Nest.js microservices can be helpful for the inter-service communication, because they supports both kind of communication, sync and async. Async communications can be useful for the messaging queues. Let's say when you are using RabbitMQ or Kafka transport, in that case you can use this event driven messaging approach. You will just do a emit from the client proxy, and at the handler side you will be just using event pattern and do some action, because it's all fire and forget. At some point, like in the TCP, GRPC, and in this Redis example, we are using request response, the message pattern, and from the client proxy we are doing .send. So this is all about. I put a lot of effort in building these demos for you guys. I hope you like it. What you can do is you clone this repository, extend these examples and use it for your own purpose. These are like basic demos, but providing a good enough approach how to build on top of these. So thanks everyone, and if you like my content, please hit like.